When I was in middle school, I had just gotten my first full-size bookcase, and after I'd put all of my books into it, totaling maybe half the case, I took a step back and looked at the very top shelf, where I had put my Warrior Cat books. There were 6 of them, and I said to myself, someday these will take up the entire shelf. Thus, my love of book collecting began. I love books not just for the stories, but for their objects themselves, which can be such beautiful pieces of art. For favorites, I love to have multiple editions, as if to proclaim to the casual bookcase viewer just how much I adore that story. Books have always and will always be a part of my life, and my collection is something that matters very much to me. 2021, when I had a more stable job and a better income, I started to put even more time and money into the collection, and I started to put less thought into the books themselves. I was buying just to buy, just for the sake of adding to my collection, and not for the sake of curating my collection to my tastes. Rather than add meaning to my books, I was stripping it away from the ones I really love, from the ones that really represent me and my journey as a reader. I've gotten out of control, but admitting that has been a bit of a journey. In a broad sense, I want to live life more intentionally. Now, I don't know yet exactly what that is going to mean for me in every aspect of my life, or even in my day-to-day. But books being such an important part to me, and literally they are a core personality trait, I really wanted to start this intentional journey towards living intentionally with them. Most importantly, I want my book collection to reflect me. My favorite bookcase in my room actually does this pretty well already, and I love that someone could take a look at this bookcase if they're meeting me for the first time and get at least some sort of a sense of who I am. I will, as a person, obviously continue to change, and so by that same mark, I don't want to only have a bookcase that reflects like my active, current, who I am at this moment self. I want it to show where I've been and what I've loved. So I'm not interested in getting rid of books that past me loved so much and was such an important part of like a past version of myself's life. They don't need to be front and center, but I don't want to like be getting rid of books just because I've moved past needing them. If I ever needed them, or if I ever felt passionate or loved them, I want to keep them. I want them to be a part of this book collection I am curating. A really good example is the Grishaverse series. I was actually considering the other day unhauling them because I have a lot of first editions, and I don't really have special editions of them because I was reading them before I got into collecting special editions. But I do have like every book, and they take up a lot of space in my collection. They're not on my bookcases, they're in like a storagey area, but I was thinking about unhauling them just to save the space. And I took a step back and I was like, no, these books were really, really important to me when I was younger. And I have really vivid memories, especially of the original trilogy, of sitting on the couch in the living room and there's snow falling, and I had a blanket wrapped around me and I was like pretending it was like a kafta and reading about the Grishaverse and just falling in love with it. And so I don't want to get rid of those books. I don't want to have moved so far past this memory that it wasn't a time in my life that mattered to me. So I do plan on keeping books like that. I plan on keeping these almost historical elements from my life. Not to be, that sounds very pretentious, but I think you know what I mean. The other most important aspect of my book collection is that the books be interesting to me. I want them to either be books I have not read, but I'm excited to read, like the very idea of it excites me. I am a huge proponent of having unread books on my shelf because you never know, especially as a mood reader, what you're going to be in the mood for. And so yes, I will buy books knowing I'm not going to get to it right away, but I'm still excited to read it. And a really good example of this is An Academy for Liars. I'm really excited for this book. I thought I was going to get to it this season. I may not. You know, the season is passing us by, and as okay, I'm okay waiting. I think I'll still be excited for it in a year. So these unread, exciting treasures, I do still really want on my shelves. For books I've read, what it means to stay exciting and to like spark joy, for lack of a better term, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 5-star favorite. There will be a lot of those on there, obviously, but it has to be something that brings me enough joy that if I look at it every day, I'm still going to be in love with this book. I'm just going to like keep falling in love with it. And especially the books that I can keep picking up again and again and like flipping to my favorite moments in them, those are going to be very important parts of my collection. Books like this would be like Dark Rise, Dark Air as well, just both of them. the Locked Tomb series, Winter's Orbit, Ocean's Echo, The Raven Cycle, all of these books that when I'm in need of a specific moment or feeling I can pick up and love, these are all going to be very important parts of my collection. So ideally, those like unread treasures will find their way into this category. Like I said, they don't all have to be 5-star favorites. All those examples were, but they don't have to be. Another book that I actually enjoyed quite a bit, but I wouldn't call it a 5-star favorite, was like The Honey Witch. I enjoyed it, and I probably will pick it up again. Like I could see myself rereading this. To me, rereading is the highest mark a book can get. If I can reread it and enjoy it again, that's a good book. A little rambling here, but I want all of the books in my collection to be rereadable. If it's not, and it doesn't have some sort of other value or reason to keep it, like a sentimental reason. Like I'm not planning to reread the Grisha trilogy, to use that example from earlier, but it's super sentimental and important to me, and at the time I had reread it multiple times. So unless it's something like that, I want them all to be rereadable. I think that's a good shorthand that I'm just realizing now as I actually tell you about this plan I have. I need to spend less money on books, and I'm also running out of space for books. These go hand in hand. My big weakness is special editions. And right now we are, I think, in a bubble of special editions. Publishers are putting them out. There's a million book boxes. There's every big release, Barnes & Noble or Waterstone's book has a special edition, and I'm a sucker for all of them. And I need to get better at judging my tastes again and exhibiting impulse control. So I need to spend less money on these things that are big weaknesses for me, and I need to actually conserve space. I am running out of space, and that is unfortunately a real problem that I have to deal with. I do look forward to someday having like a huge library, but I am not at that point in my life. What I have done already is I went through all of my pre-orders at Waterstones and Barnes & Noble. If it's a book box pre-order, I have actually been, over the course of the last 2 months, been doing a much better job of deciding whether I actually need that book or whether it's just FOMO. I don't even know if you could cancel those. I just went through book retailers and I did cancel some. I didn't cancel all of them, especially if they're a couple months out, because these places don't charge until the books have shipped. Sometimes it kind of curbs the impulse to buy by pre-ordering the books and then canceling in the lead up if I decide I don't need it then and there. So I did do that. And I would actually recommend that if you, like me, just want to be buying books but don't have the money to spend or trying to save money, just pre-order stuff way in advance. Keep track of it. Keep good track of it. And then cancel it before it comes out. Waterstones, Barnes & Noble, and Blackwell's, I've never had a trouble canceling at any of these locations. And I think most recently, in this like last go through of canceling, Waterstones was the most convenient to cancel, which I didn't remember being the case, but I'm excited is the case now. When it comes to special editions, the key question is going to be, will I be heartbroken if I don't have this specific edition of this book? Now, I'm a bookseller, so I'm very lucky that I have access to a lot of ARCs, and I need to take advantage of the ARCs for these books that I'm uncertain about. And I need to be asking myself sincerely whether I get the chance to read the ARC ahead of time or not, whether I would be heartbroken and genuinely upset not to have that specific edition of the book. And that has happened, where I've been like, I've convinced myself I don't need it, and then I am heartbroken. And it's also mostly happened the other way, where I've convinced myself I do need it, and then I get rid of it a couple years later because I'm like, didn't like that book, don't need it. Actually ugly in person. Good example of this is the new, I don't remember if it's a Barnes & Noble exclusive or just a paperback release of the Hurricane Wars. It's actually freaking hideous, the US paperback release. I think it's hideous. I don't like it. And I've had to talk myself out of buying it because I think it's ugly. I love that book, but this edition is not it. So I have had to talk myself out of it. And then for book box subscriptions, I meant to count. We're just gonna be ashamed real quick, and we're just gonna go through all of the book boxes. I am a paying member, and I'm going to tell you how I'm going to approach them. Basically, it's going to be a lot of skip policies, and it's going to be really playing with the idea of canceling them. So just in the order that I keep track of them on my spreadsheet, Illumicrate. I love Illumicrate. They are my OG book box. I have been getting them since February of 2020. They were my saving grace during the pandemic. I've never skipped an Illumicrate box because I do full box, and I don't think that'll change because I love their collectibles. But going into the new year, I am really going to be seriously considering which boxes to skip ahead of time. That's gonna be, I'm not even kidding, this is maybe the hardest one for me. But they have such a generous skip policy, so I just have to take advantage of it. I also do their Evernight collection, but I do skip these most of the time. I think I've gotten 2, and I'm totally fine if I only get like 1 a year. I'm fine with that. I don't love that much horror, but I like some of the horror picks that they do. So I'm not worried about Evernight. That's not one of the problem ones. Broken Binding, I'm gonna hold on to this. I'm tier 2, but I'm still gonna hold on to this with like a freaking death grip. I'm only gonna cancel this if I run out of skips. They only do 1 skip, which is like 3 months a year, calendar year. And if 2 of the other series, so I'll let myself take the hit for 1 series I don't like an unexciting series, I'll take the hit for that. But if a second one comes through that I'm just not interested in, I will let it go. I'm gonna be freaking holding on to this though. I love Broken Binding, and that wait list is so long. I also am on their sci-fi sub. I'm gonna use the skip if I have to, and then if I run out of skips, I'll probably just let that go. I'm not as needy with that as with the regular Broken Binding. I am also a member of Lock Library and Lock Library Forbidden Wing. I use a package forwarding service, if you're curious, for Lock Library. These are both really generous skip policies, so I'm just going to keep using them as skips. Again, these ones are really not the problem. I skip more than I actually receive these books. Goldsboro Premiere, once my year runs out with them, I'm done. They just really haven't been hitting. I just don't want to break that early because I would feel bad. Fairy Loot, I do Fairy Loot Adult combo with the YA book. They're not great with skip policies, but they've been hitting with the picks. So as long as I am a lot more cautious with other special editions they do, and I think really what it is with Fairy Loot is as long as I am on top of things. They tend to do series, so if I read the book that they send early enough that I know I don't like it, or that I know I do like it, I won't be tempted to buy the sequel. And I'm really going to try to not buy sequels unless I've read book 1. Even if I'm worried it's going to sell out. That's going to be hard too, but I think you can do it because I've actually read most of the Fairy Loot books. And then Fairy Loot Romantasy, this has been almost a total miss for me all year. It started over the, I guess it was springtime. It started in April, and I am almost out of skips. However, I really anticipate 2025 being the year of this sub, so I am trying to stick it out through there. If it's not, like if I end up using all 4 skips real early in 2025, or when it resets in May for me, I'll cancel it. But I am holding out because there's so many good sounding romantasy that I think I'll like. I thought there was gonna be more this year, legit, but it's been mostly misses. Me trying to like romantasy is a whole other. And then Curate, I do adult and YA. They also have a super generous skip policy, so just continuing to take advantage of this. Again, Curate, like Locked Library and Evernight, is just not really the problem here. I think I've gotten 3 YA books this year, and actually I did do a few of the adult books, but that was because I was really interested in them. I do also plan on changing the YA box subscription to the YA book only to help save money. So that's a little tangent. You can skip that part. Basically, if you did skip that part, I want to be using full advantage of book box skip policies, being more on top of the books that they send, so I know whether I am actually interested in buying the sequels, and only buying the sequels if I have read and enjoyed the book, and buying fewer of the special editions these book boxes provide on the side, and being very deliberate and careful with them. Again, curating my collection. Next, using the library more, particularly Libby. I already use Libby a bit, but I need to take more advantage of it. I love Libby. I actually have 2 library cards. One is for like an online library, and one is for my library that I actually go to. I should visit the library more and use it more, and I would like to, but I'm not going to hold myself accountable to that because I do have just like anxiety that I'm working on, and going there physically is not my #1 place that I need to get comfortable going at the moment. Libby is really how it's going to be. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Using Libby to read an audiobook of a book I was already debating picking up if it's backlist, and doing that before I actually decide whether to buy the book. And then for the books I already own, DNFing, that is so hard for me. DNFing at any point during the story-ish, and unhauling. So I say ish for the DNFing because if I'm only like 20 pages in, I don't really think that's a fair point to DNF because the story probably hasn't even really started at that point. I think I would want to be at least 5 to 10% into the book itself before I decide. I feel like that's fair to like actually give it the chance. to be a true DNF. And then if I have like less than 100 pages left, I don't really think there's a point to DNF there. Just like finish it and like hate the book. So that's why I say like ish, being more liberal with DNFs. There was a book, The Half King by Melissa Landers. I was reading that recently and it was fine. And I was halfway and I was like gonna just power through. And then I like took a step back and I was like, I'm not having any joy from this book. I'm not interested to pick it up. I think it's a series. I'm not going to want to keep this book on my shelf. I'm not going to want to buy book 2. I do not care about any of these characters. So I just DNF'd it at like 55% and that was hard. But I felt really good to be able to say no to that one. And then unhauling, I have already posted an unhaul video. That should have been the video that posted I think earlier this week. So the video right previous to this. I'm planning to spend 1 day a month, and I want to record each of these on each of my bookcases to get each of them the time and attention they need. And hopefully from that point forward, you know, it'll be a good reset. And then after that, after it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and then plus all the books in like storage. So 4 months of that, and then 1 month to go double back through everything. And then hopefully it'll be not that frequently that I need to do it. This is like weeding a garden though, ish. I don't know that much about gardening, but it's like weeding a garden. Canceling pre-orders, being better or making better choices when it comes to special editions and subscription editions, using the library, reading ARCs, DNFing, unhauling. These are the things I really need to be doing and am going to start doing to curate my book collection. For my book collection, I want to have beautiful special editions. I want to have unread books. I want to have favorites. I want to have the mainstream and the obscure that have grabbed my attention. I want to have manga and novels and classics and science fiction. I want to track down specific editions because of the cover or the introduction. I don't want titles I feel middlingly about. I don't want books I've forgotten literally every detail of. I don't want series that make me regret the investment. I want it to grow and change with me, and I want it to always, to my eye, look beautiful.